another episode of Guest with Nazir. We are honored. Today's honorable guest is a practicing barrister. Today we will discuss his life, his achievements, and challenges. Welcome, Hasnat, in our show.
Thank you, Nazir. Thank you very much.
Hasnat, please tell our viewers about your early days, your education, and especially the challenges you have faced.
Early days, Nazir, began with obviously the usual state school. I didn't have a private education, but I went to a usual local state school, finished my GCSEs. I did engineering college for a year, but that wasn't something I found easy for me to deal with, because the challenges I found, maths and things like that wasn't my strongest point. So I shifted when I started university to law. I did my degree after 3 years qualifying, starting my LPC. I had to do my LPC on a part-time basis because I couldn't afford to not work. I needed to pay for my LPC from my own pocket. So I was working at a solicitor's firm as well as doing my LPC part-time. After about 6 or 7 years after qualifying as a solicitor, I found myself to be doing a lot more work in court. So I was doing a lot more advocacy. The clients wanted me to attend. I couldn't have a practice where I was in court and in the office. So I had to make a choice. So around 2016, I decided that it would be best if I moved to the bar because I enjoyed the advocacy a lot more than the office work. So that was a very, very brief of my early progression and how I got to the bar.
Especially our overseas viewers and students who are coming to studies in the UK. So how you will define in simple words difference between solicitor's life and a barrister's life?
Okay. The best way I could express that is the difference between a GP and a surgeon. So a GP will do a lot of the work face-to-face with clients or his patients, and they're general practitioners. So they will have a wide range of laws that they will cover. So whether it be family, conveyancing, immigration. When a barrister is more a courtroom advocate. So the solicitor will give the barrister the work where a client needs an expert in the courtroom, depending on what expertise they have. So they only deal with court work. So whether it's the High Court, Supreme Court, or the district courts. So barristers are only court-based. They don't have direct interaction with clients unless instructed through solicitors to do so.
If a solicitor wants to go to advocacy route, so what is the quickest route for them? They have to go to academic, or they have to do some exams, or they have to do some training. So what is the best route for them?
There are a few routes. So as a solicitor, you, again, like I had to decide whether or not I want to do 100% advocacy or do I want to do office work. Before I went to the bar, I did what's called a higher rights course. So once you're a solicitor, you're allowed to do a course, which is called the higher rights advocacy course. Once you've done that course, you will have rights of audience in the High Courts and the Crown Court. Now, you can stick to that, where you're still a solicitor, but you're allowed to attend higher courts and crown courts. Or you can then use the higher rights advocacy course to apply to the bar to become a barrister, where you then are not allowed to be a solicitor, but you just then act as a barrister. So it's a personal choice whether you want to balance being a solicitor and do advocacy, or you would rather just change it. But either way, you do your high rights and then move across.
Now, in recent years, we have seen a lot of cuts in legal aid, how it is affecting the justice system, and now is affecting also life of a practitioner as a counsel for anybody or a defendant.
To be honest, it's been brought to light very recently, where the strikes have been substantial. But the fact is, the last 15 years, since I've been in practice, the government has consistently cut legal aid, where an average criminal barrister, a junior who attends court, may spend the entire day at court, but receive only £80 to £90 from legal aid. So the cuts have been crippling. They've caused a lot of damage to the profession because people cannot afford to practice as barristers who are on legal aid. Now, obviously, the less people in the bar or less people who are acting as barristers or solicitors on legal aid, the less access your average individual will have to lawyers or good barristers. And therefore, it's a trickling effect. You cut the fees, you don't have enough barristers, you don't have enough court time, and it starts affecting how many people you can actually access to have proper justice. So it's a domino effect, I would say.
So for our viewers' sake, so what are the areas of law you like to practice or you're practicing in most?
My expertise are in family finance law. So there's something called ToLATA, the Trust of Law and Trustees Act, which is basically about cohabitees and trustees who live together. I also do family finance, or divorcing couples who are not able to settle outside of court, have various assets that they want to divide properly. And I also do private children law, which is basically the children, the parents not being able to agree how much contact a child should have with another. So that's my preferred area of law. I spent a long time in immigration before I fine-tuned it only to family law. But my early days was immigration. Then I moved to family law about 8 to 10 years ago.
Recently, we have seen some reforms in the family law, especially in divorce system. So do you think these are good steps towards the justice system, or what are your views as a practitioner?
Well, the most recent change has been the non-fault divorce. So previously, before these changes came in April, you had to show reason for divorce. For example, bad behavior or 5-year separation or 2-year separation. The recent changes, which are no one needs to be at fault, I think has helped fine-tune the divorce process. I don't know whether it's a good thing or bad as a society if you can get divorced quicker, but legally I think it is a good thing because then no one needs to make up reasons which they don't really have. So that's one change which has helped. There's constant review on children and how children are treated when separation happens. And Justice Mostyn has offered some very good guidance, who's the president of the family division, recently to assist, again, advocates and parents in how it would be appropriate to deal with separation of children and domestic violence cases. So there's been some good developments. Like I said, I'm not sure if it's good for society.
What is the time frame of a simple divorce where there is no assets involved or there are no children involved, just a couple wants to, separate their ways and just want to finish the
end the relationship.
Yeah, end the relationship. Yes.
I think the average, as long as they both are on in agreement that the marriage has broken down and there's no defense potentially, then it can be as quick as 4 months. And that's only because you have to wait 6 weeks before you can get the absolute. The application process and the decree nisi process will probably take about 4 to 6 weeks.
Is there any step in the procedure that the couple has been given an opportunity to reconcile if they want to, or there are no such things? Just they have to go to a quick process and they have to follow the procedures?
So this is my solicitor practice talking now. When I used to be a solicitor, one of the guidance that was issued is if a party comes, so a wife or a husband comes to ask for a divorce, the first thing we need to do is try to see if we can avoid it. So we'd advise them of other issues that they can do. So a bit of a counselor rather than a solicitor. But there's nothing in the law to say that you should try and reconcile. The only thing they do have is, like I mentioned earlier, the decree nisi process, which is once you've applied for the divorce, you have your decree nisi, which is the first stage of your divorce. You must wait 6 weeks before you can apply for your decree absolute. The 6-week process is designed to allow people to reflect and, do I really want to do this? So it gives them a cooling off period. And if they still want to do this after 6 weeks, they apply for the absolute. That's the only little legal position.
There is another question, especially a lot of viewers will be thinking about this. If a couple are not married, but they have assets, and when they part their ways, and obviously they start separating process. So what are their rights? Because you mentioned you deal with the trust law and all these procedures. So what are the rights of the people who are not married? Especially I've seen in some ethnic minorities, because normally they have sometime a traditional or customary marriages which are not registered in English law, but still they are living, and sometimes they live for a long lifetime. But at the end, when they're separated, it comes to knowledge that the marriage was not registered, and they could not get any share in the proportions.
Yes. And that's where the ToLATA comes into it. So traditionally, South Asians or ethnic minorities who have a certain religious following may get as far as they're concerned, they are married. They've gone to the mosque or the synagogue or the temple. They've had their religious ceremony done. The people are invited. So, I mean, the most recent case I dealt with was when they were in a relationship for 24 years, married under a religious ceremony, but not registered under the English ceremony. It does come under ToLATA, which is a trust-based law. Unfortunately, it depletes rights quite substantially for both parties. Now, often, especially the older generation, there was a more traditional setup of a housewife or a home carer and a person who went out to work. It's a contribution-based argument that has to happen. It doesn't mean they have no rights, but it's harder to prove that they have an equal right in the asset, which they don't own. If they own it, then they can rely on property estoppel and priority estoppel and things like that. But if they don't own it, or it's not in their name, then there needs to be a further investigation from the court as to what actual rights they have over these properties.
Not recently, we have seen the right of appeal has been taken in many cases in immigration law. How you see as a barrister that how it's affecting the litigant, and especially the application, people who make the applications, and especially the human rights aspect. So how it is affecting the people's life?
I think it's a grave breach of human rights. Not having a right of appeal after an application has been refused. I think it's a serious concern where the government have effectively said that we will make a decision, and whatever we decide, you will have to abide by. The court will have no oversight on this. It first happened on visit visas, where family members who wanted to visit their family in the UK couldn't lodge a traditional appeal. It has to go straight to the High Court or judicial reviews. And as you know, as a practicing solicitor, that's a very expensive process, especially for someone who's just trying to visit. So I think it's a grave breach of human rights. It's part and parcel. I mean, we still have the European Convention of Human Rights, which we rely on, but the intention is that we're going to be moving away from that and using a Bill of Rights, which will be, again, when it is passed completely, we'll know what it actually entails. But I think it's a very serious.
How you will see in comparatives, if let's say we will see Bill of Rights, and then we are seeing, obviously we are also have a bigger piece of I will say protection for the rights, Magna Carta. So will it be an interesting debate in the courts, especially when it comes to the challenge, or it will be a simple procedure? So how you see this?
I think with Magna Carta, that was our first ever bill, so to speak, which took away the rights from the monarchy and gave it to the government. Unfortunately, what I think is happening, and this is an opinion, not fact, what I think is happening is we're moving back towards pre-Magna Carta days, which not necessarily the king will have all the rights, but the government are acting like a monarchy, where they want to be able to refuse applications, or do what they want without any judicial oversight. So I think the Bill of Rights isn't really going to do Magna Carta any justice. And I think the Bill of Rights is going to be designed in a way where the government can still exercise their views without having any real combats from lawyers like yourself or I who want to challenge them on certain issues.
So for our viewers, especially the law students, what are your suggestions for them if people who are watching our show and wants to join law? So especially if they want to come, especially the barrister route or solicitor routes. So what are the best guidance from you for them? So obviously youngsters who are watching, and especially the students who are on the verge of making the decisions whether they should join profession or which profession.
I would say the starting point is don't do it for money and don't do it for the status. You won't survive. You must enjoy what you're doing. If you enjoy it, you will come out the other end. If you're doing it for, I will make a lot of money, or it's very glamorous, that's not going to give you enough fuel to get over the finishing line. So the fuel should be passion and desire, whether you want to be a solicitor or a barrister. And if you have the passion and the desire to want to become a lawyer for a reason, such as change in society or challenge any wrongdoings, then good, you will get to the other end. But passion has to be part and parcel of your armory. If you don't have that, and you think, Jalo, I'm going to be a lawyer and people are going to be very impressed with me, you won't get through the other end because it's a lot of hard work starting.
They're selecting this subject, especially it is also a very critical stage. So what subjects are I will say compatible with the law? Should we say philosophy and history or literature? So what kind of subjects are totally supportive of law? Because obviously in coming days, when it comes to the academia, they have to face the challenge of exam and also preparation of the case in professional life. So what are the golden subjects for them if they want to come to the profession?
So I suppose GCSEs are discounted, you do what you do. When you get to A-level stage or college stage, then you can and should take the law module if you're interested in moving forward into law. Accompanying that with something like English, psychology even, history, I'm going to call them wordy subjects. What I mean by that is there's no point doing science when you want to be a lawyer, unless you want to use science as your backup plan in case you don't like the law when you get into it. So any wordy subjects where you have to do lengthy writing and be reading and writing is part and parcel of that module. That will give you the right skills to be able to then become a good advocate or a person who has good drafting skills.
So any interesting incident of your life you want to share with our viewers?
As far as the law is concerned and my practicing areas, it's no one day is the same, which is what I enjoy about the law. Every day when I'm in court, I have a different client and different situations. I'm not going to give you specifics, but there have been times where I'm sitting there asking some questions of my client in court, knowing what the answer is because my client has said it in a statement. Only recently, I was in central London trying to defend my client that his wife is the one who has been the perpetrator of domestic violence and tried to steal his money. When he got on the stand, remember his statement through his solicitor was completely different. She's horrible, she's done this, she's done that, she's taken my money. So that was our case. That's the case I'm putting to the other side. I want the judge to accept. When I started my first question, and my first question was, you've provided a statement. Is it true to the best of your knowledge? He said, I want to make some changes. This was a 5-day case. This is on day one. after 3 hours. He said, I want to make some changes. So I said, well, explain to the judge what changes. And he spoke so beautifully about his wife, how amazing she has been. She's never done anything wrong. And he spent a good 45 minutes absolutely destroying my case. And the judge looking at me thinking, Mr. Bashir, I don't think we need another 4 days here. Your client concedes. I don't know whether he fell in love with her again or they had some private conversations, but that was very embarrassing and difficult to try to negate. But that was my most recent experience, which I found out of the ordinary.
So you have to take him as a hostile witness, or so what was the outcome? So obviously it is an interesting situation.
The outcome was we lost the case, of course, because the judge said your client has accepted everything. I can't treat him as a hostile witness because he's the witness who's instructing me. If I was relying on, for example, you on his behalf, then I can treat you as a hostile witness and say, Judge, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to treat this person as the other side's witness. But if it's your own client, you can't treat them as a hostile witness.
But I think as a positive note, I will see it means might be they have gone to reconciliation route.
I think so. I think that's what happened, where they thought, nay, we're in the wrong here. They had a coffee the night before, and she either persuaded him to throw everyone under the bus, and he did. His son, his daughter-in-law, his lawyers, everyone went under the bus.
It's not because of the time restraints. We could not go for long, but at the end, I always request my guests to leave a message for our viewers who are watching us internationally and nationally. So what is your message for our viewers?
I'm going to tell you to the law and the legal profession. The reason I got into the law was because I did want to make a difference, and I want to challenge people who oppress another person. So a general life message is, whatever you do, in my opinion, you should do it with passion, and you should never give up on your goal, regardless of the adversity you face. So keep trying hard. Don't give up on your goals and ambitions, regardless of the obstacles you face.
I'm grateful that you have joined us and you have given us your precious time. Viewers, this was a nice interaction with Hasnat Bashir. In coming days, we'll bring more shows, more personalities. Keep watching Sheffield Live TV. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Nazira.